Ford is making some major changes, other automakers are likely to follow suit, and this could ultimately be the final nail in the coffin to the death of the dealership. And while for the average consumer, it's hard to say whether this will be a good thing or a bad thing. You see, the direct-to-consumer model for automakers has been gaining steam over the last few years. This is the Tesla model, but nowadays many brands in addition to Tesla are practicing this, including Rivian and Lucid, while other brands such as Chevy, Ford, Volvo, Volkswagen, and more have announced that they will be going direct-to-consumer with EVs over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. The whole idea is that you can buy a vehicle almost as easily as you can buy something from Amazon, all from the comfort of your own home. Okay, maybe it's not as easy as buying something from Amazon, but it is much easier than going to a dealership. And while the direct-to-consumer model offers a ton of convenience, the biggest downside is the fact that there are no negotiations. When you buy directly from the manufacturer online, you are not able to negotiate anything off the price of that vehicle. So the price they say it's going to be is the price that you're going to pay. And if you're anything like me and the idea of paying MSRP or above for a new vehicle seems against your core belief system, then for many, a dealership is still the right way to go. And while going to a dealership does mean that you have to deal with sleazy salesmen, painstaking negotiations, and it means that you'll have to give your entire day up to the car buying process, it does mean that you at least do have a chance of getting a sweet deal off of a new vehicle because of the price that you negotiated. One of the biggest benefits of going to a dealership is your ability to negotiate on the car purchase. But it looks as though Ford may be putting an end to this. But before we dive into that, I would like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Fetch. Fetch is a peer-to-peer car sharing platform that allows for its host to list pickup trucks, cargo vans, and box trucks up to 16 feet high. With Fetch, you can list your van or truck in less than 15 minutes, making the onboarding process fast and easy, and you can scale your fleet on your own terms. There are no fleet minimums, so no matter how many vehicles you want to own, Fetch is there to support your growth. When you list your vehicle with Fetch, you get access to their robust insurance policy, which covers both liability and physical damage. And Fetch will handle rental fulfillment, so they'll actually find and vet the customers that will rent your vehicle. You can get started with Fetch today with no commitment or fees. To learn more, go to fetchtruck.com/rentmytruck and click Start Now. You can also click the link that I will have down in the description below. Thank you, Fetch, for sponsoring this video. This week, Ford held their Ford Markets Day, which is an investor event where Ford shared plans about profitability, electric vehicles, and operations. And one of the biggest takeaways from this Ford Markets Day is that Ford is planning on going on a no-negotiation strategy for all of their new vehicles. Jim Farley, Ford CEO, also emphasized that Ford will be creating alternative, never-before-seen revenue streams through Ford software solutions, and he also said that Ford will provide tailor-made ownership experiences rather than jockeying for slivers of market share. I guess no negotiation is their way of tailoring the ownership experience. This is interesting, and in my opinion, probably not good. And quite honestly, this leaves a lot of questions unanswered. If new vehicles are being sold no negotiation, does that mean that vehicles will finally be selling for their MSRP and not thousands above it? What does this mean for junk fees and crazy dealer add-ons? What's going to stop a dealership from taking a car, marking it thousands above MSRP, and then whenever a customer comes in to negotiate on that vehicle, they simply put their hands up and say, sorry, Ford has a no negotiation policy. And last but certainly not least, is the price that vehicles are marketed for online, is it actually going to be the price the customer pays? So are dealerships going to get rid of bait and switch sales tactics? Because while these are predominantly prevalent in the used market, they're also prevalent in the new market as well, especially if dealerships get desperate. On the flip side though, we have to acknowledge the benefits of this, like the fact that maybe we'll finally be able to get a car for MSRP without having to sit in a dealership for hours. Or alternatively, it could mean that 10 people won't walk into a dealership any longer and get 10 different prices on the exact same vehicle. Because currently in present day, there is a proven bias with certain customers and buyers in the car buying experience. For example, people of color are statistically more likely to pay a higher price for a car, even if that car is the exact same as something that someone else bought for a cheaper price. And historically, the elderly tends to pay the highest price for cars whenever you compare them to other segments of people. The discrepancies between how much people pay for a car based off of who their salesman is, what their bias is, and their negotiation ability could be coming to an end, which would be a good thing. But then of course this begs the question, if cars are going to a no negotiation pricing strategy, then what's the point of the dealership? It has become abundantly clear that automakers are trying to phase out their dealerships, at least portions of them. This is why we've seen so many major brands adopt direct-to-consumer models for their EV sales. And the only reason why we haven't seen these same automakers adopt a direct-to-consumer model for their gas-powered vehicles is because according to franchise law, they really can't, at least as of now. But the writing is on the wall. With the no-negotiation strategy, automakers are taking more steps to cut dealerships out of the equation entirely, or at the very least, make their involvement in the car buying process more limited. Because the truth is, there are a few benefits of going to a dealership versus buying your new car online in a direct-to-consumer way. And one of those key benefits is your ability to negotiate on a car. I've been saying for a very long time that I think that the future of the dealership looks incredibly different than what dealerships look like today, and especially different than what they've looked like in the past. Dealership footprints are getting smaller, on-hand inventory is shrinking, and the modern dealership will begin to look more like a showroom like what we see with Tesla, Rivian, or even brands like Lincoln with their Lincoln Experience Center, versus the massive buildings that we see today. And it seems as though this fits in quite well with Ford's new tailored experience approach to ownership. But then, of course, we have to ask ourselves, where does this leave dealerships and the car salesman? Well, possibly for the first time in many of our lifetimes, the job of the car salesman may be phasing out. At the very least, it might be thinning out. Sure, car salesmen probably will never go away, and neither will dealerships, but it almost without a doubt will shrink based off of where the auto industry is trending. And truthfully, it leaves dealerships to do what they do best, which is service. Most dealership models actually don't make their money through sales, they make their money through service. And so today, while we may think of a dealership as a place to buy cars, in the future, we may think of a dealership as a place we predominantly go to in order to get our cars fixed. And let's just say if I was a car salesman or a dealership owner, I would be concerned about the new trends that we've been seeing in the automotive industry. And this is all happening whenever automakers are making an interesting pivot. Historically, at least here in the United States, automakers have focused on volume and not profit per unit. Basically, the idea is that you sell as many cars as you can, even if you're not making as much off of those individual cars, but the volume of the cars that you sell will carry you to profitability. But over the last year, there has been a very clear shift from volume to profit per unit. Automakers are no longer as focused on producing and selling as many cars as possible, and they are instead more focused on their bottom line. Automakers are now saying, hey, let's sell less vehicles, but sell these vehicles at a higher price, and thus we'll actually make more money with less volume. This shift is why we're seeing this no negotiation play. It's why we've seen so many expensive high-trimmed vehicles released over the last couple of years, and it's also why we're seeing a lot of the budget vehicles disappear entirely, which is something that I've discussed at length on my channel. And while I'm not going to sit here and say that automakers are wrong to make this pivot, because truthfully, I don't know. I am really curious to see how this play will end up playing out if the economy takes a hit. Selling a $75,000 car is a much easier sell if the economy is doing well versus if the economy is tanking, which I don't think is something that's out of the question for 2023 and 2024. All in all, I think the pivot from volume to margin is not a good thing for the average consumer, as it limits the car buyer's options. And the verdict is still out on this no negotiation policy, and it will depend on how dealerships abuse it. And based off of what we saw in 2021 and in 2022, I'm going to take a wild guess that dealerships will in fact abuse this policy, but we'll have to see. But this new policy is without a doubt going to be a bad thing for dealerships long term, because if you can't negotiate, then what's the point of going to a dealership at all? But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.